my primary interest is in Grass Castle Creek and the rare populations of eastern brook trout that are isolated above the dam of the reservoir. When I read the plan, I called biologists, the fish and wildlife biologists, with whom I've worked in stream surveys to identify the kinds of fish that are present. He was among the group that identified this population in the upper reaches of Grass Castle Creek and said, have you seen the Roy Rock forest management plan? He said, no, I've not heard of it. So, to me, it represents a problem that is got nothing to do directly with this committee, your committee, as much as it does the way in which DEP is operating in silos next to each other who don't communicate with each other. If this were to be truly an ecologically balanced plan, all of the department heads who are affected, that be land use, threatened and endangered species, fisheries, freshwater fisheries biologists, would all know and would have all had an opportunity to sign off on this plan after at least being advised of what Gracie and Harrigan had been proposing to do. As it turned out, the only person in DEP, at the head of DEP, who was aware of what was going on was the head of the Forest Service. The gentleman I talked to, the fisheries biologist, did come out after a week or so after the logging started to visit to see what his impression was of the impact of that work on the stream. While he was there, he met a colleague from the Land Use Management Division. They both looked at the absence of a silt fence a week after the work had commenced. And I would say, maybe even 2 weeks later, there was no silt fence. He said, we talked to the regional forest manager, who was based, I think, somewhere in Morris County, and he agreed to have didn't say who put it up, but we asked them to install a proper silt fence. I went back and I looked at it, and there's about 100 feet of silt fence installed where it should have been properly, but it should have been there for 2 weeks prior. So this brings up the larger question in my mind of how Gracie and Harrigan is managing the procurement of the services of the logger with apparently a lack of feedback on a day-to-day basis that would allow the Gracie and Harrigan plan that relies on New Jersey best management forestry practices to go unattended for so long. And then in looking at how the contract was let for the plan itself, the resolution identifies or has words to the effect that the Gracie and Harrigan will be authorized to develop the plan and harvest timber. Now, I know that they don't operate chainsaws and they don't have a fleet of trucks or skidders. So they obviously some other entity came in to do that work. And my question now is, I don't know how the township oversees or supervises the procurement process of actually getting those tractors and chainsaws onto the property. And if Gracie and Harrigan isn't minding the store, then who is? Because if Gracie and Harrigan is hiring a subcontractor on their own, I would think they would need to be certified purchasing agents or something, because for a 10-year contract, even at $10,000 a year, you're talking about significant money. So my main concern, aside from the health of the fish, is the gap that I can't fill in my own mind between the time Gracie and Harrigan was told, go ahead, write your forest management plan, and then somehow, in words that I haven't found, or in Oprah efforts and so on, we have not found anything that explains how the bid for the sale of the timber went out to the public. Those trees are public owned assets as far as I can tell. They're part of any real estate parcel. So if you're selling part of a public asset, I would imagine that there would be rules in effect that would require that the sale be traced from the time the contract is bid, if it's necessary to be bid competitively, until the time the revenue is received, so that you know that you're not giving your trees away. So that's my main concern, the fish and how the loggers actually get on the ground and do their work in terms of their contract or a mystery to me. Thank you.
Didn't I write a letter to you in response to that about 6 months ago? Was it you or was it somebody else from one of your organizations? Somebody wrote a letter asking that, and I responded to it at least 6 months ago. And if you wanna give me your information, I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
I know the letter that you're talking about.
Oh, okay. So
I did not sign the letter and send it to you.
Okay, I just knew that had been raised and I had responded to it, and I didn't think you were the one that had asked for it, so, all right.
But the disconnect for me still, even, and your reply was passed along and it was very thorough and I appreciate it.
All right.
I still don't understand how from Gracie and Harrigan's contract, an award for the sale of township-owned property went out and was bid and a contract was awarded. If it were, let's say, surplus police cars, you have a way to deal with that.
Right.
The trees are at least financially equal in terms of each one has an individual value that I would think the township would want to keep track of and make sure that the bid that went out and you are told that you're getting $10,000 a year, maybe you should be getting $20,000 a year. How do you know?
Well, that's gonna be bid out every year. The Gracie and Harrigan contract's a professional services contract, so it's not
Right.
subject to the local
Yes,
public contracts.
I-
So it's an exemption, so you know that.
I agree.
So each stage that this goes through, that's gonna be bid out. That tree cutting is going to be bid out.
Through you or through Gracie and Harrigan?
The first one was Gracie and Harrigan. I'm not sure if we're gonna do it through them or through the town going forward. Yeah.
I'm just a
Yeah, so
little.
they bid it out, they got three, it was under 17.5, so they got, I don't know how many, three quotes, so
But that's it's a 10-year, they have a 10-year
No,
contract.
Gracie and Harrigan does, whoever cut the trees the first time, I don't remember the name of the company, they don't have a 10-year contract. That has to be bid out every year. Gracie and Harrigan's contract does not.
Understood, and that's what makes it even more confusing. If they take the purchasing function every year for 10 years, they will be doling out the contract for the loggers. And I don't think that you know.
Before this happens next year, we will make sure you know exactly what the process is. So that if you have any questions, you can say, I don't think that's right, you should change it to this, whatever, you know. Because again, I don't,
That's a
the next
stakeholder
phase of this,
manager
if it
thing.
happens,
Never
isn't gonna
happened.
be
We're
till
starting to promise that.
fall of next year. So,
Thank you very much.